The last time Carol Vance touched one of my packages, she had no idea she was starting a war. Not a neighborhood disagreement, not a polite little HOA complaint. I mean a full-blown, buzzing over the rooftops. Everyone on the block looking out their windows kind of war. And the funny thing is, I am not a dramatic person. I pay my bills early, I bring my trash cans in before dark, I wave at people even when they pretend not to see me. I moved into Briarwood Hollow because I wanted quiet. A little house, a little yard, a place where I could drink coffee on the back patio and not hear my upstairs neighbor dragging furniture at midnight. For the first 2 weeks, that was exactly what I got. Quiet streets, trimmed lawns, mailboxes that all looked like they came from the same catalog. And then my packages started disappearing. The first one was a camera lens. Nothing fancy, but I had saved for it, and I was excited to use it on a weekend trip with my sister. The tracking said, "Delivered at front porch." I opened the door and saw nothing but a welcome mat and 2 dead leaves. I figured, okay, mistakes happen. Then a box of replacement parts for my old espresso machine vanished. Then a birthday gift for my nephew disappeared, a little remote-control dinosaur that roared and walked. The kind of toy that would have made him lose his mind for about 9 minutes before the batteries died. By the third missing package, I was standing on my porch like some tired detective in sweatpants, staring at the empty concrete like it owed me answers. That was when I met Carol. Carol Vance was the president of the Briarwood Hollow Homeowners Association, and she wore that title the way some people wear a badge. She was tall, thin, always dressed in cream-colored cardigans, and she carried a leather folder everywhere. Like she was one signature away from saving civilization. She came marching up my sidewalk one Tuesday evening while I was watering a half-dead rosemary plant. "Mr. Miller," she said. Not hello, not welcome to the neighborhood, just my last name, sharp as a paper cut. I turned around and said, "Can I help you?" She looked at my porch, then at me, then at the rosemary plant, like all 3 of us had disappointed her. "Your outdoor mat is not on the approved texture list." I laughed, because I honestly thought she was joking. She did not laugh. Instead, she opened her folder and pulled out a printed warning notice. "It is considered visually inconsistent with the community standard," she said. I looked down at the mat. It was gray. It said, "Come back with tacos." I said, "Carol, it is a doormat." She smiled without warmth and said, "That is usually how non-compliance begins." That should have been my first warning. A few days later, another package disappeared, this time a small box of framed family photos my mom had mailed me. That one hurt in a different way. You can reorder a charger, you can reorder a toy, but you cannot just click "buy again" on pictures from your childhood. So I installed a camera. Not one of those big obvious ones. Just a small motion camera tucked inside a fake birdhouse by the porch rail. I felt ridiculous doing it, like I had become the paranoid neighbor I used to joke about. But by that point, I did not care. I wanted proof. And I got it. 2 mornings later, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the video, expecting a delivery driver, maybe a squirrel, maybe some teenager with too much free time. Instead, I saw Carol Vance. She walked up my front steps in broad daylight, wearing white slacks, sunglasses, and that same cream cardigan. She paused at my door, looked left, looked right, picked up a small brown package, tucked it under her arm, and walked away like she was collecting church donations. I watched the clip 4 times. The first time, I was confused. The second time, I got angry. The third time, I started laughing. Because there is a special kind of madness in watching a 60-year-old HOA president steal your mail with the confidence of a bank robber. The fourth time, I stopped laughing. Because that package had my name on it. My address. My property. And Carol had taken it like she owned me. That night, I went to the HOA meeting with my laptop under my arm and fire in my chest. The community room smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. About 20 neighbors sat in folding chairs, most of them looking bored. While Carol sat at the front table beside 2 board members who seemed afraid to breathe too loudly. When public comments opened, I stood up. Carol's eyes narrowed immediately. "Yes, Mr. Miller," she said. "Do you have another concern about your mat?" "No," I said, plugging my laptop into the projector. "This one is about theft." The room shifted. I played the video. There she was, 20 times bigger on the wall, stealing my package in full daylight. People gasped. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." A man in the back actually leaned forward like we were watching the final scene of a courtroom movie. Carol's face went pale, then pink, then hard. I turned to her and said, "Would you like to explain why you are taking boxes from my porch?" She stood slowly, smoothing the front of her cardigan. "I was not stealing," she said. "I was removing visible delivery clutter in accordance with community appearance guidelines." I blinked at her. "Delivery clutter?" "Yes," she said, finding her rhythm now. "Unattended parcels create an unattractive, transient appearance. They lower the tone of the neighborhood." I said, "Carol, one of those boxes had pictures from my mother." She lifted her chin. "Then perhaps your mother should have scheduled delivery to a proper receiving location." That was the moment the room went silent. Not awkward silent. Dangerous silent. I felt heat rise in my face, but I kept my voice low. "Where are my packages?" "At the association office," she said. "Pending review." "Review for what?" "For compliance." I stared at her, and I realized something that made my stomach turn. Carol did not think she had done anything wrong. She did not think she was stealing. She thought the whole neighborhood was her house, and the rest of us were just guests who needed correction. So I smiled. Not because I was happy, because I had just decided I was done playing by her little ground rules. For 2 days, I barely slept. I read the HOA rules, all 86 miserable pages of them. I read city ordinances. I read delivery policies. I read federal drone guidelines until my eyes hurt. And there it was, buried in all that beige legal language, the thing Carol had missed. The HOA had rules about driveways, porches, fences, landscaping, visible storage, trash bins, mailboxes, holiday lights, yard signs, and even the acceptable height of decorative grass. But it said absolutely nothing about airspace, nothing about drones, nothing about backyard delivery zones, nothing about packages arriving from above and landing behind a privacy fence where Carol Vance's clipboard had no jurisdiction. Now, I did not just run out and buy some toy drone from a mall kiosk. I am petty, not stupid. I contacted a small local company called Skyport Courier, run by a former search and rescue pilot named Dana Brooks. I told her I needed a legal, quiet, private delivery setup for a residential property. She asked, "Is this for a business?" I said, "It is for survival." There was a pause. Then she said, "HOA?" I said, "How did you know?" She laughed and said, "You would be amazed how many calls begin this way." A week later, Dana came to my house with 2 technicians, 3 compact delivery drones, a foldable landing pad, and a weatherproof lockbox that looked like something NASA would use to store sandwiches on Mars. We set it all up in my backyard behind the fence. The drones were not huge or scary. They were sleek, quiet, and programmed to follow a safe route straight to the landing pad. No spying, no buzzing people's heads, no flying low over yards. Just delivery, drop, return. My first test package was a bag of coffee beans. I stood on the patio holding my phone like a kid waiting for Santa. Then I heard it, a soft hum above the trees. The drone came in smooth, hovered for a second, lowered the package into the lockbox, and lifted away. Total time, maybe 20 seconds. No porch. No visible clutter. No Carol. I almost cried over coffee beans. Unfortunately, Carol saw it too. She appeared at my side fence so fast I thought she had teleported. "Mr. Miller," she shouted. I walked over slowly, sipping coffee I had not even brewed yet, just to be irritating. "Morning, Carol." She pointed at the sky. "What was that?" "A delivery." "That was a drone." "Correct. You cannot have drones delivering things to your property." I leaned against the fence and said, "Show me the rule." Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. So I added, "Take your time. I know there are 86 pages." Her face tightened in a way that almost made me feel bad. Almost. "This is not in the spirit of Briarwood Hollow," she said. I nodded. "Neither is stealing baby pictures from someone's porch, but here we are." Her eyes flashed. "You are making a spectacle of this community." "No," I said. "I am receiving my mail." That afternoon, the email started. Carol sent an emergency notice to the entire neighborhood, warning residents about unauthorized aerial activity. She described my drone deliveries like I had installed a missile base next to the azaleas. She mentioned noise, privacy, safety, property values, falling objects, frightened pets, and, for some reason, the emotional well-being of songbirds. By dinner, my phone was blowing up. Some neighbors were annoyed. Some were curious. Some wanted to know how much the service cost. One guy named Frank from 2 streets over texted me, "Can it deliver ribs?" That was when I knew Carol had a problem. The emergency HOA meeting happened Friday night, and this time, the room was packed. Carol stood at the front with a stack of papers and the expression of a woman prepared to defend the suburbs from modern civilization. "These drones," she began, "represent disorder. They represent selfishness. They represent a refusal to respect the shared visual identity of our community." I raised my hand. She ignored me. "They could crash," she continued. "They could drop packages on children. They could look into windows." Dana from Skyport was sitting beside me, invited as my guest. She stood up calmly and said, "Our drones do not record private property. They follow approved routes. They weigh less than most ceiling fans. And they have automatic fail-safe landing systems." Carol snapped, "And who are you?" Dana smiled. "The licensed operator." That changed the room. People started asking real questions. How much did it cost? Could medicine be delivered? Could groceries be delivered? Would it help older residents who had trouble getting to the door? Could it reduce delivery trucks blocking the street? Carol tried to interrupt every answer, but she was losing them. You could feel it, that invisible shift in the room when fear turns into curiosity. Then I stood. I looked at Carol, then at the neighbors. "I did not do this because I wanted attention," I said. "I did it because my packages were taken, and when I brought proof, the person responsible told me I was the problem. I was told my porch was ugly, my deliveries needed approval, and my property could be handled by someone who never asked permission." Carol's jaw clenched. I kept going. Maybe drones are weird. Maybe this whole thing looks ridiculous. But what is more ridiculous, a package landing safely in my backyard? Or an HOA president deciding she can confiscate people's mail because she does not like how cardboard looks? Frank from 2 streets over stood up and said, "I vote for the cardboard police being ridiculous." The room laughed. Carol did not. And that laugh, small as it was, cracked something open. Carol tried one final move. She called the city. She filed complaints about noise, privacy, zoning, aviation risk, neighborhood disruption, and, yes, the songbirds. For 3 days, I wondered if I had pushed too far. I am not going to pretend I was fearless. I was nervous. I had spent money I probably should not have spent. I had made myself the center of attention in a neighborhood where people usually fought their wars with passive-aggressive mailbox notes. Then the city inspector showed up. His name was Raymond Ortiz, and he looked like a man who had seen every kind of neighbor dispute known to humanity. He inspected the landing pad. He checked the lockbox. He reviewed Dana's operating documents. Carol stood nearby with her folder hugged to her chest, watching like a prosecutor waiting for a confession. After 20 minutes, Raymond closed his notebook. Carol stepped forward. "Well," he looked at her and said, "Well, it is unusual." Her face lit up. Then he added, "But it is compliant." Carol froze. Raymond turned to me. "As long as operations stay within the submitted safety plan, I do not see a violation." Dana nodded. Frank, who had somehow wandered over with a lawn chair, whispered, "Drone ribs are still alive." The city did not shut us down. In fact, they asked Skyport if they would consider a small pilot program for neighborhoods with package theft problems and limited street access. Carol's complaint had accidentally turned my backyard solution into a city innovation meeting. After that, everything moved fast. 3 neighbors signed up, then 8, then 17. The first official neighborhood drone delivery was not medicine or documents or anything noble. It was a pepperoni pizza delivered to Frank. He held it over his head like a championship trophy while half the block clapped from their driveways. Carol watched from her porch, arms folded, face stiff as concrete. 2 weeks later, she resigned as HOA president. Her resignation letter was 4 pages long and somehow blamed technology, moral decline, weak leadership, social media, and the collapse of tasteful restraint. She never apologized for taking my packages. She never returned the framed photos either. My mother sent replacements, and this time they arrived by drone, landing gently in my backyard like a tiny miracle with propellers. A new HOA board took over. Their first vote was not about mats, mailboxes, or cardboard. It was to create a resident review committee so no one person could invent rules out of thin air again. As for Carol, she sold her house that fall. Some people said I drove her out. Others said she drove herself out the moment she decided control mattered more than decency. I still do not know which version is fair. Here is what I do know. For months, I had felt small in my own home. I had watched someone with a title, a folder, and a fake smile treat me like I needed permission to exist. And maybe that sounds dramatic, but if you have ever been bullied by someone who hides behind rules, you know exactly what I mean. They do not always yell. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes they say community standards. Sometimes they steal your mother's photos and call it compliance. These days, Briarwood Hollow is still quiet, mostly. Lawns are still trimmed. Mailboxes still match. But every now and then, you hear a soft hum over the trees, and someone looks up, and a little box drops safely into a backyard, out of reach of anyone who thinks authority means ownership. And every time I hear that sound, I think about Carol Vance, standing in that meeting room, trying to convince everyone that my solution was the problem. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I turned a neighborhood dispute into a circus. Maybe I should have called a lawyer, filed a police report, and handled it quietly. Or maybe, just maybe, some people only stop crossing lines when you build a new one they cannot reach. So I want to know what you think. Was I wrong for fighting back this way? Or did Carol get exactly what she deserved? Have you ever seen an HOA, a landlord, a boss, or some self-appointed gatekeeper abuse their power and call it rules? Drop your story in the comments, because I promise you, somewhere out there, another Carol is holding a clipboard right now, just waiting for someone to finally look up.